Hey, why are you running?
Because it's an argument.
What?
It's an argument, I say. I don't like conflict.
It's not that kind of argument, dude.
What?
Hi, I'm Dr. Clay Zuba, inventor of Zubify. Writing the argument essay for the AP Language and Composition test can make you feel major stress, sis. But if you watch this video to the end, you'll see how writing this type of essay can be creative and fun and be the easiest essay to write to help you get a high score on the AP Language and Comp exam. Yes!
What if you had 45 minutes to convince someone to take your position on an important issue? This is basically the scenario of the AP Language and Composition argument essay. You'll have around 40 to 45 minutes to read a prompt and understand the prompt and then take a position on the prompt. But it won't be enough to just take a position. You'll need to compose an effective thesis, you'll need to provide evidence, and you'll need to show in your commentary how your evidence supports your thesis. Here's the other thing. You won't be given any evidence to evaluate or analyze. You need to create your own. What? What? No! Don't worry. Creating your evidence and choosing your evidence is the funnest part of the AP Language and Composition argument essay, and I'll show you how to come up with your evidence in this video. Your essay will be scored on its thesis, on its use of evidence, ability to show in its commentary how your evidence supports your thesis, on its line of reasoning, and possibly on sophistication, which will measure how well your essay can show complex thinking about the issue that you're taking a position on. To score well, your essay should have a clear line of reasoning across multiple claims. Yes! For example, here's a prompt from a recent AP Language and Composition exam. Let's read this prompt together. One of the first-year student orientation initiatives at a local university is to collect incoming students' cell phones and keep them for 48 hours. What? The purpose of the initiative is to give students an opportunity to integrate into their school culture and to make friends on campus. Carefully consider the effects of the initiative and the extent to which they might support, complicate, or contradict its intended goals. Write an essay that argues your position on the advisability of the 48-hour cell phone ban. In response, your prompt should do the following. Respond to the prompt with a thesis that presents a defensible position, provide evidence to support your line of reasoning, explain how the evidence supports your line of reasoning, and use appropriate grammar and punctuation in communicating your argument. You'll notice that these items under the part where it says in response you should do the following are pretty much the same items that I told you were going to be scored on. Let's decode what that AP prompt is actually telling you to do. It's especially important to look at the task words in the prompt. Words like explore, analyze, or argue. Think of these words as your GPS. They tell you exactly the direction that you need to take with your argument. The most common task words that you're going to see are defend, challenge, or qualify, which is basically asking whether you agree, disagree, or partially agree with the claim. If you see these words, take a clear position. Analyze. Here you need to break down the components of an argument and explain how they work together. But don't just state your opinion, show your reasoning. Argue. Make a case for the position using solid evidence. Remember, this isn't just stating what you believe, you need to convince your reader using evidence. The key is to recognize the task words in your prompt first, because this will help you understand what you need to do in the essay. Most of the prompts will ask you to argue, defend, or qualify, all of which ask you to take a position in relation to the prompt. Notice that our sample prompt asked you to take a position on the 48-hour cell phone ban. Let's explore how to effectively formulate a position in relation to a prompt. Basically, there's only 3 ways to respond. They are agree, disagree, or agree and disagree. Another way to think about this is saying yes, no, or maybe to the prompt. If you are agreeing, then you are agreeing with everything that is included in the position of the prompt. If you're disagreeing, then you are disagreeing with everything that is included in the position of the prompt. If you are writing an essay that is an agree-disagree or is a maybe, then you're partially agreeing with some elements of the prompt, but not agreeing with other elements of it. Here are some examples of ways to formulate the 3 possible options in how to respond to this prompt. Yes, I agree. I agree that the university's 48-hour cell phone ban policy is an effective strategy for creating social connections because, and then after because, that's where your evidence would go. Disagree. I disagree that the university's 48-hour cell phone policy is an effective strategy for creating social connections because, and then in the blank, that's where you would put your reasons. Maybe, but, agree, disagree. While I agree that the university's 48-hour cell phone ban may be an effective strategy for creating social connections, it should be modified to blank because blank. Notice the way that this thesis agreed with one part of the prompt, but modified the policy that was being described about the university's cell phone ban. I've just shown you the 2 tasks that you need to do before you start to write your argument essay. This is called prewriting. Prewriting allows you to have all your ideas for your essay before you start to write them. It's very tempting to read your prompt and come up with a thesis and then just start writing. But I'm telling you, it's the wrong thing to do. And if you do that, you're going to be going down bad choice road. Because you've made a bad choice and you started down that road. And once you start down that road, you're not going to be able to get off that road by the time you figure out you're on the wrong road. So do yourself a favor, follow the process that I'm outlining for you in this video. Only after you fully comprehend the prompt and have an idea of what the possible answers to the prompt are, should you start to generate your evidence.
Today's helper is Licky Boy. Sometimes helping isn't always just sitting around. Sometimes helping is waiting for somebody to be done working so they can take a break and play with you with the fishing pole. And then maybe you can just kind of hold on to the fishing pole and they can get a better attitude, better shot of you. And you just kind of sit there and look at them. Oh my gosh. And then when they try to take it, you try to get it back and you hold it with your claw, just like so. Anyway, he's got his own special version of helping. And I hope that he's helped you enjoy this video the way he's helped me edit this video. Okay.
Generate your evidence. You should generate your evidence through brainstorming more types of evidence and options for evidence than you're going to need in your essay. This part of the writing process can cause some anxiety for people. Understandably, you're not giving any evidence, so you need to come up with your own, but you're going to be wondering, how do I know if I have enough evidence? How do I know if I have the right types of evidence? And how do I know if my evidence is any good? I have good news for you, and I can help you. There are basically 3 main types of evidence, which are experience and observation, current events, and academic knowledge. So there's an extent to which the essay is not just testing whether you can write things, but whether you know things that are relevant if you want to contribute to discussions in our society. Within these main types of evidence, there are some smaller types. For example, under experience and observation, there are anecdotes or personal experience. A personal experience is something that happened to you. An anecdote is something that somebody else told you about, like your friend Guinevere or Mima. Academic knowledge is the kind of stuff you learned in school. It's historical knowledge, mythology, or the Bible, literature, or stuff you learned in your science or math class. Finally, there's current knowledge, which would include current events, expert opinions, and popular culture. Popular culture is movies you saw on Netflix, song lyrics from Charlie XCM, or stuff you saw on social media. It's writing or videos that are popular, but not necessarily literary or super intellectual. I think that after you comprehend the prompt and formulate possible positions of the prompt, you should write down the categories of evidence and then start to generate evidence. Little baby girl.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute, I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket.
There's no worser way to come up with your evidence than looking at a black page. Writing down the possible categories for your evidence gives you structure and a way to organize your ideas and make sure you're creating evidence across multiple types of evidence. So, Memorize the types of evidence before the test, write them down on your scratch paper, and then start filling them out. You could do something like what I've done on this slide. Baby girl needs her squirrel. After you've written as many types of evidence as you can, as many examples as you can think of for each category in like 5 minutes maybe, it's time to assess and choose your evidence. When choosing from these categories, remember that stronger evidence is better. Stronger evidence is evidence that directly relates to the college environment or social bonding. It's evidence that can be explained with specific details, and it's evidence that comes from credible sources and addresses both the potential benefits and drawbacks of the policy or position that are in your prompt. A strong essay might combine evidence from like a personal orientation week experience with current psychological research, and perhaps a literary or historical example for a broader context. After you've written as much evidence as you can think of, look at it and see which types of evidence you think are the strongest and which you feel most comfortable writing about. Pick 2 or 3 pieces of evidence and see what they tell you your thesis should be. If they're all agree, you have an agree thesis. If they're all disagree, you have a disagree. And if they're a combination of agree or disagree types of evidence, then you have an agree-disagree thesis. For example, for this essay, you might generate the following types of evidence. For personal experience, you might think of your own orientation as a freshman in high school or as a freshman in college. In anecdotal evidence, you might think about your friend's experience in summer camp. In history, you might think of communities that formed without the benefits of technology, and if they were pretty good or not. In literature, you might think of famous examples of writers who wrote about technology or times when technology was not as prevalent. The one I'm thinking of is Henry David Thoreau, who warned against using technology for too much in Walden. For the mythology of the Bible, you might think of the myth of Narcissus. Narcissus was this guy who spent all his time looking at like how pretty he was in a pond. And you can think about the way that the phone is kind of like a pond. It shows a reflection of ourselves based on our interests. The thing about Narcissus is he was too self-absorbed by looking at himself. And like, I feel like something bad happened to him, but I don't remember what it was. For the sciences, you could think of neuroscience research on the connections between phones and dopamine, the way that the dopamine jolts from looking at your phone too much make your brain want to do nothing but look at your phone and devalue the relationships around you. Current events might include the United States' most recent TikTok ban or proposed TikTok ban and how that worked out. Expert opinions might include professors' ideas about technology and isolation. And for popular culture, you could think about social influencers who talk about taking breaks for technology, or Charlie XCX's thoughts on technology. Because Charlie XCX's ideas are profound and deeply moving. And then it's finally time to write your thesis. Here's some possible theses that I've formulated based on the evidence that we've generated for this video. Agree. By implementing a mandatory phone-free period during orientation, the university successfully addresses the modern barrier to community building, forcing students out of their digital comfort zones and into meaningful face-to-face interactions. Notice how I basically followed the template that I laid out for you at the beginning of this video. Disagree. While seemingly progressive, the university's phone ban is a counterproductive policy that fails to recognize how modern students build community, ultimately hindering rather than helping the formation of social bonds. Yes, okay, but maybe. While the university's goal of fostering deeper peer connections through this phone ban is admirable, a more effective approach would maintain the spirit of the policy while implementing more flexible, student-centered strategies for building community. At this point, you've done everything necessary now to write an excellent essay because you have a thesis and you have evidence and a clear idea of how your evidence is going to support your thesis. Yes. Now that you have your outline, you just write your essay. You need to make sure you explain fully each piece of evidence so a reader can understand like what it is if they're not that familiar with it. You should also remember to explain how your evidence supports your claims and why. And you should follow basic essay structure, which is introduction, thesis, body paragraphs that begin with a topic sentence, and a conclusion. I have a video about thesis construction, and I also have a video about how to write effective paragraphs. I'll link them below. And do not be afraid to write an agree-disagree type of answer. Writing this type of essay will probably only help you because it will allow you to show more complexity in your thinking and sophistication, and will probably ultimately result in an essay that scores better. I'm telling you, follow the process that I'm outlining for you in this video. Follow my process, write the Zuba way. What I'm telling you is probably the reverse of your instinct. Your instinct under time constraints is to read the prompt as fast as you can and then just start writing. But if you write your thesis first, then your evidence, your essay is going to be simplistic and boring. If you go from evidence, you have a greater chance of writing a more interesting and complex essay. My method generates for you complete GPS directions for your essay before you even start to write. You don't need to think about the evidence while you write. Instead, you can think about how to best write the essay about your evidence that you already thought of. And that's how you write a fun and creative and successful argument essay for the AP Language and Composition exam. I'll probably make you some more videos that flesh out some of the parts of this process, so remember to like and subscribe so you make sure you see those videos in your feed later. Yes. Thanks for watching Zubify. Remember, come back for more Zubify.